City of Stevens Point Age-Friendly Commission meeting, recorded November 16, 2023.
I will call to order the first meeting of the Stevens Point Age-Friendly Commission. We'll start with the roll call, so I'm going to read everyone's last name. If you could signify by saying here when you hear your last name. And if I butcher your last name, please let me know, because I don't want to repeat that again. So first one will go in alphabetical order. Bartnick. I believe he was going to be excused. Douglas.
Yeah.
Perfect. Giblin.
Here.
Perfect. Jury.
Here.
Perfect. McDonald. I know she said she was going to be here. I'll put her as a right now. Miller.
Here.
Perfect. Swangstu.
Here, yep, that's right.
Oh, I did say that right. Perfect. Wall.
Here.
Wigginton was going to be online. I'll give him a little bit. And Zarazua.
Here.
Perfect. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 members, which is a quorum. And second on the list is introductions. And before we kind of go into hearing from all of you, we do have a message from Mayor Wiese, so I'll turn the floor over to him.
Thank you, Adam. I think I know everybody here, so welcome and thank you very much for agreeing to take time out of your personal lives to meet and help make our city a little bit better. They're going to go over some of the goals and some of the things that we hope to do, but from my standpoint, know that nothing is off the table. If you have an idea like benches across the street from Berkshire or streetlights going all the way down the river and on both sides, I want to know about it. This is an opportunity to not only take input to make sure we are and remain age-friendly on all of the spectrum that covers, but any other ideas. This is a forum where we want to share the ideas, get input from those of you who have a passion for our community, and see how quickly we can implement some of this stuff. So thank you all very much for serving, and if you have any questions, you can go through Adam or just contact me directly. Thank you.
Awesome. Appreciate it. So like I said, before we get to kind of the details about the commission's charge, I want to spend a little time talking really to get to know each and every one of you, to understand more where your professional expertise lies in, and once we get in a little bit further, hearing what you individually are looking to get out of this commission, just since I think you all as a commissioner, you have a really deep understanding and a good background to provide some really good stuff that Mayor Wiese mentioned before. So I guess for the first kind of around the horn for introductions, if I could have each of you give your name and your professional background. It could be a current job that you have. If there's folks who are retired, you could give your most recent job. So I think we'll start with Makira. Don't mean to put you on the spot, but.
Hi, I'm Makira Zarazua. I have been working in the community with people with disabilities. I did that for about 20 years. Recently got my master's degree in social work, so I am an advanced practice social worker working towards my licensure, and I support people in community-based mental health currently. I also recently served as alder in Stevens Point. So just resigned from that role so I could focus more on the things that matter to social workers specifically, and this is one of those things.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Michelle?
Yeah. Michelle Miller. I work at the university. My position there is as the Associate Director for programs in the university centers. So all the things that students engage in outside of the class are in my purview. So fitness and recreation, campus activities, student engagement, all of those fun things. So I've been there for 17 years. Started out in residence life, was a hall director, lived on campus for many years, took a break from higher ed, worked in healthcare administration for Ascension Ministry, now Aspirus here, and then came back to the university a little while ago. But yeah,
awesome.
Married, have 2 kids that are in high school and middle school currently.
Nice.
Are you a 1L, Michelle?
I'm a 1L Michelle. Yes, she noticed I edited.
1L?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Kira.
1L. Next time, it will be only 1L. Awesome. Dom?
Yeah, so my name is Dominique Swangstu. Currently, I'm the Natural Resource Recreation Planner for the Village of Plover. I've been there for about 2 years now. Prior to that, I was the Marathon County Zoning Administrator. I was up with Marathon County for about 4 years. So my professional background essentially revolves around land use regulation, recreational uses, applying for grants. I'm also working with different conservation organizations and focusing on collaboration to implement different best practices when it comes to planning and implementing different projects. I graduated from UW Stevens Point. Coming up on 6 years ago now. It's going by quick, but I've been in central Wisconsin for about 10 years. I'm interested in, I guess, joining this commission just to expand my knowledge and experience, as well as, I guess, provide some input to hopefully make the community a better place. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Kate Giblin. I work for the Aging and Disability Resource Center of Portage County. I am the Senior Center Manager there. I'm also a gerontologist and an anthropologist. Those are my academic background. I currently also sit on the board of the Wisconsin Association of Aging Networks. So I do a lot of legislative advocacy for aging communities, and I am also on the board of the Wisconsin Association of Senior Centers. So when they invited me to join this commission, I was like, yeah, I'll probably have a lot to say. But anyway, thank you.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
My name's Caitlin Wall. I'm the mobility coordinator for the City of Stevens Point in our transportation department. Let's see, what do I typically do? I do a lot of community outreach. I work with the ADRC, the high school, the university. I also do the travel training as well for the city. I graduated from UWSP, and then I also got my master's degree at St. Cloud State. So, yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate it. John?
John Jury. I was here before Michelle at the university for many, many years. Then I did a stint at the Community Foundation of Portage County. A couple kids growing, loved the point. I think I'm here because I've been involved with the Green Circle and all kinds of different activities, biking, walking. And I think I'm just a frustrated old physical education major. I think people just need to move more. Kids need to move more. Professionals need to move more, seniors need to move more, so that would be my interest area.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Okay, my name is Pearline Douglas. I'm here living in Stevens Point for 2 years. I just moved in because of my daughter and her husband. I'm retired 7 years ago. This year is 7 years. I'm not working. I like to have fun. I like to go places. So when Mike, we saw him at the roundabout. Because every Wednesday we go down there to, people like to dance and have fun. So that's where we didn't meet there, but before we met before. And when he asked me to join the aging disability thing, so I said, okay, I'll think about it. So I thought about it for a while, and then I'm here tonight. So yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Appreciate you all again for taking the charge to be a member of the commission. Like I said, this was kind of the first around the horn discussion for introductions. The second thing I want to talk more about is what are you looking to get out of this commission? And in a little bit, Darren and I will talk more about kind of the role of this commission going forward. But one of the key words that you'll hear time and time again is the term livability, right? And so I have actually two leading questions for you. Some of you mentioned that you've lived here for decades. Some of you mentioned that you've lived here or you moved here a few years back, pretty recently. So I want to ask you both, just before we get into the details, one, what makes Stevens Point livable for you? So if somebody asks you, why did you choose to live in Stevens Point? Or why do you choose to continue to live in Stevens Point? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? And then secondly, kind of the opposite of that. What is one thing that we as a city can improve on to make us just that much more livable? And I guess to give you a little bit of time to think some answers over, I'll just give you kind of something that comes to mind for me right off the bat. What makes us livable? What makes us stand out? I think our parks, our availability of open space. Don't really have to walk that far, hence the 10-minute walk to a park campaign. You don't have to walk that far to a park, an open space area, which that's something that regardless of what age cohort somebody falls in, that's something that everybody can appreciate. And I think something that we can improve on, I think that's community engagement. And one of the things as a Gen Zer that I'm really excited about you being on, Michelle, is to try to integrate students at UWSP into the broader conversations about what's being done in terms of policies here in the city. You know, every college town has their unique set of challenges, but we're all unique in the concept of, academic flight. We want to make sure that those who graduate from UWSP stay in UWSP professionally. So what are ways that we can do that to help incentivize folks to live here going forward? But I think we'll start on the other end of the table this time. Pearline, if you wanted to give first what you think makes Stevens Point livable and what we can improve on. First thing that comes to mind.
I like the people.
Okay.
Friendly people. Everywhere I live, I've never met anybody like Stevens Point, the resident of Stevens Point. And that attracted me mostly, not because my daughter came here. I would never been here if it wasn't for my daughter. But anyway, I love Stevens Point. The parks. Mm-hmm. But one thing about like Fesna, the lighting, I like to see more lights there. Mm-hmm. When they have entertainment, when you leave that night, it's real dark. You can't see where you're going. Mm-hmm. You know, you either have a searchlight or the light is there, so far from one another. Mm-hmm. But I like to see more lightings.
Appreciate it. John?
Like Michelle, I came here to be a hall director. And we tell people I came here 51 years ago for 3 years because I was going to stay 3 years and then save the world somewhere else. And we probably, about 45 minutes after we got here, we moved from Illinois, farm country, and we felt like we were home. I think it's the environment. And all the things that we like to do are readily available. If you want to downhill ski, if you want to bike, if you want to run, walk, anything you want to do is easily accessible from here. I think those were the things that grabbed us and convinced us to stay.
Okay. Perfect. Caitlin?
As somebody that grew up in a small town and then has also lived up by the Twin Cities, I really like Stevens Point because it is a larger city, but it also has that kind of small town feel. You kind of know everybody. I really like that in a community. One thing that I think we could use more of is affordable housing, especially for seniors. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I came to Stevens Point about 20 years ago from Atlanta, Georgia, and it was culture shock. But I love that there's always something here to do, from a high school play to the university concerts to concerts in the park. Lots of neat shops, lots of neat restaurants. I think it's a really rich community with lots of different options for different kinds of people. So that I really enjoy that about our community. I think that an area for improvement that this commission could definitely focus on would be transportation, especially for older adults, because we really need more transportation options. We have folks sitting in our lobby waiting, a long time for cabs or rides, and older adults, when they lose their ability to drive or their confidence in driving at night, like here, it's night, it's like 4 o'clock and you gotta, Cinderella, be home. that's an issue. And it is also difficult to get around in the community from a walkability perspective because of ice and snow, and a lot of our curb cuts get buried again. So I think we could do a lot more to make transportation and accessible walkways in our community.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Don?
Yeah, so as I said before, I've been in Stevens Point now for just over 10 years. I guess what drew me to come here was the university, but what I guess is keeping me here would say, I guess, the sense of collaboration and openness that I see. And I know just not with my professional experience, just working with different organizations and entities, I feel like everyone's always open to kind of provide a helping hand to make something happen or to get things done. So I really appreciate that. Obviously, being the Parks and Recreation kind of guy, I do really enjoy all of the parks and the proximity to county parks and just natural areas. I like to be outdoors, so it's one of those where you're only 5-10 minutes away from, open fields, forest, or things like that. The location as well, just being in the center of the state, I think it's very unique, and it's kind of a blessing just being where we are, especially along the two major, I guess, transportation corridors of 10 and 39. So that brings a lot of opportunities, but it also brings some potential conflicts with traffic and things like that. So I think some things that this commission could work on, I'll echo some of the ones that have already been stated here, would be housing. I would, I guess, take a slightly step farther, not just affordable housing, but quality housing as well. I know with some of the housing stock in the community, it's aging, and you see that more, it's a little more evident with college students, college housing. It's just deteriorates, and there's no incentive for property owners in some cases to make improvements. So I think there's definitely some improvements that can be made there. But also transportation, just making our busy, and I won't name the corridor, but making some corridors more safe and user-friendly moving forward. And that just extends, in multiple different communities as they change and as they evolve. I think there's a need to integrate different modes of transportation. So I think this is a great opportunity to kind of see how all of those pieces of the puzzle fit together.
So I came to work at the university and then met my partner here, who is a lifelong resident of Central Wisconsin and already had a job that he loved, so we were committed to staying here. But I also fell in love with the community. It was the right size. I'd worked in higher ed in a few other campuses and communities, and this was a really good fit. And lots of things that people already said were really engaging to me. I loved that I could walk to so many places, parks, restaurants, music. There was things to do that really engaged us, and then as we were raising our family here too, so we definitely were committed to staying. Improvements, and I've already started to see some of this, which I'm really excited about. One of my biggest complaints always, so when I moved out of the residence halls and we decided to purchase a house, we really wanted to be close to the university, the north side. We weren't finding, at the time that we were moving out, we weren't finding a lot of housing options there that were walkable. And I'm like, well, I'm not moving to Plover because I got to drive everywhere. I want to be able to walk places. So we ended up buying a place out in the country. But what would bring me back to town is what I'm seeing happening downtown with some of the apartments and the buildings that are going there, places where you can just park, or maybe not even have a car, and just be able to walk and go and do all the things that I used to do when I lived on campus for older people, which I'm excited that those things are happening. So I'd like to see more of that. And then, yes, lighting and walkability and all of those things come into play.
So I appreciate it. Kira?
You guys covered it all. No. So I also came to Stevens Point as a student in 1990 something, and I came from Portage, which isn't that far away, but we're a very different community than where I came from. Like, people are just really kind here and friendly, and it really was confusing to me when I first came here that I'm like walking in a grocery store and people just say hi, and I was like, I don't know you. Like, why are you talking to me? But that has never changed. Like, that is still Stevens Point today. Like, and I think what makes Stevens Point amazing is that people are very generous. Like, that friendliness goes into like neighbors helping neighbors. We're really rich in resources. Like, when people need help, there are a lot of things to turn to for people to get a gas voucher or get some help with rent. And yes, those things all cycle of whether or not there's a lot of money or not, but there really are a lot of things for people to turn to for that kind of support. I think one thing that's really important to me is affordable housing, also transportation being accessible and just improving access to our city. One thing that I heard once, and I use it a lot, is that if you have a ramp to a building, everyone can get in the building, and I'll keep saying it. So all of the things that we do that improve the livability of our city for seniors will help everyone who lives in our community. And so that's the part that's really exciting about being a part of this, and seeing that, if we improve affordable housing for seniors, there will be more housing for people who are low income. If we improve our transportation system for seniors, hopefully other people will be like, hey, the bus does get me where I need to go and gets me there as quickly as I want to be there. And, so really just seeing ways that we can improve and the things that we already have, build on that, and continue having Stevens Point as a great place to live.
Awesome. Appreciate you all spending some time to kind of give your thoughts. Again, this is really helpful on my end specifically to try to understand, where your thought processes are as to where we think we can improve, just so I can try to kind of formulate and provide some direction to you all as to where our focus area should be in the months ahead. So I really appreciate that. Next, we're going to go, if you're following along in the packet, will be item number 3. We're going to talk a little bit more about AARP's network of age-friendly communities, and then followed by really talking more about the role that this commission will play going forward. And to do that, I will pass the baton over to Darren, who works in our AARP Wisconsin office. So I'll kick the baton over to you. And if you just wanted to give a little background about yourself first, I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. As Adam said, I'm Darren Wisniewski. I am the Associate State Director of Community Outreach for AARP Wisconsin, and I'm one of 2 staff members that work with all of our age-friendly communities around the state. My colleague Amber is based out of Milwaukee area, so she does a great job covering the lakeshore, and I get the rest. I came to Wisconsin 9 years ago to work for WEDC, and I oversaw the downtown development programs, so the Main Street and the Connect Communities program. And I joined ARP, it'll be 5 years in January. I had been a longtime supporter of the work they did for Age Friendly, so when I had the opportunity to come on and do this underneath the banner of ARP, it was really a no-brainer for me to do that. Age friendly, just to give some background, we'll start with livable communities. And ARP has 2 terms. We have livable communities, and that's all of our resources that we have. You go online, arp.org/livable, you can get lost for days in all of that stuff. All of those materials, you see lots of publications and titles. You can download them as PDFs. You can order printed copies of that. I always tell our folks, if you see something and you like multiple copies, our online ordering system does not allow you to do that. But if you let me know, we can get them in and I can ship them up to you. So if you have some things that you think would be helpful, we have a wide variety of catalogs in our office, but there's still, we don't have printed copies of everything, so it might take us a couple weeks to get that, but we'll definitely get those to you. ARP got into livable communities because in 2010, we were surveying our members, and we learned that almost 80% of them wanted to stay in their home, and most definitely in their community as they got older. And as you all have mentioned, our communities and our homes are not necessarily meant for that. We like to say that our homes and communities are built for an able-bodied 35-year-old. That's who typically they're built for. And outside of that realm, you struggle a little bit. And so, seeing the demographic trends going on in the country, ARP said we need to step in and get involved. And, we've been preaching this for quite a while, and it always, I get a chuckle every time when I talk to policymakers and they say, all of a sudden, we've got a growing population. I said, no, not all of a sudden. We've had demographic information for a really long time. You could see trends. You knew it was coming. And so, Wisconsin is not unique in this. The United States is not unique in this. And there are some countries that are actually as far as aging populations, they have a much older population than Wisconsin, than the United States does. And so, but there are the challenges that we work with, and with that comes opportunities. With the age-friendly program, ARP was approached by the World Health Organization to become a U.S. affiliate of their age-friendly cities program. That is an international program. And ARP took it on. They really had no idea of how many communities would want to do it. And they said, sure, we think maybe 50 communities across the country would want to do it. We're now approaching, if we haven't already, we're approaching 800 communities that are part of this network across the country and growing. And then we've taken it a step further, and we've gotten, I think there are 7 states that are doing it as well. Wisconsin is not one of them. But our neighbors to the west are Minnesota, Michigan is one of them, and a few others. And so, we always think that opportunity and would love to kind of roll it out in the state. And we always say, when you join the network at any level, it's what you can control at that level. So, if you're an age-friendly state, it doesn't mean every community in the state is an age-friendly community. They all have to apply individually. We also work with some counties and multi-county regions across the country. With the age-friendly, the thought, as I approach it and ARP approach it, while we are advocates for the 50+ in this country, we do say that age-friendly is really all ages and all abilities. And I always just love to throw that out to folks. There's an organization in Toronto, based in Toronto, Canada, called 880 Cities, and we love to steal their line, because they say if you make a community that's great for an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old, you've made it great for everybody. And so we just really think about the quality of life of the kids that are moving around, the mobility and the independence that can happen with them. They can move safely and freely, as well as our older populations, our older residents that go in there. Age-friendly focuses on, Adam, I know I saw the 8 domains of livability.
Yes.
And so I want to just touch on that. Our livable communities programs, as well as age-friendly, are based around the 8 domains of livability. And so we look at outdoor spaces and buildings. Many of you at this table have mentioned the importance of those. I'm a huge proponent of those. I think the country got to see how important they are during COVID, and how that was our lifeline to sanity in being able to get out there. But we want to make sure, are they accessible to people in the city that we're in, our community? Are they accessible to all people? Do we have the amenities? And so just thinking about the users, or the people who could use it, are they right there? Okay, next slide. Housing. I heard housing there. Again, looking at housing and for all incomes, all life stages. When we talk about, I hear often around this state, and I heard it even before I joined ARP, the need for workforce housing. And I had seen, 7 years ago, we have a mismatch in housing between life stage and housing stock that we have. And so we have 1- and 2-person households living in 3- and 4-bedroom homes because there's no appropriate house for them to move into in their community. And so we know the benefits of staying in your community and the social aspects, the physical and the mental benefits there. So if we could get housing that's more appropriate to the life stage, we can free up those larger bedroom homes. And so we always talk to people about that, and not necessarily thinking about senior apartments. While they're great for some people, many people have lived in their single-family homes. The next step is not an apartment. And so thinking about a smaller detached home that would work there. So that's the housing. The next part is the transportation. Think about life beyond driving. Always keep in mind, as our statistics show us, the typical American outlives their ability to drive by 8 to 10 years. What does it look like for that person in getting around? And that, that's people who were driving and could drive and no longer can. But what do we do, in Wisconsin, where we know that somewhere between 30 and 40% of Wisconsin residents do not drive and operate an automobile for one reason or another? Maybe they're not old enough. Maybe there's medical reasons, financial reasons. We all know how expensive it is to operate a car and what the challenges that creates there. Or sometimes they just choose not to drive. And so how do we make our communities connected and safe for people to get around? Madison just held its World Day of Remembrance for Road Traffic Victims press conference today in advance of Sunday's commemoration, and we were able to speak at that and understanding, also in our communities we've seen the statistics that say that the over 70 population is disproportionately the victims of pedestrian fatalities and injuries. And so again, think about the 8-year-old and the 80-year-old. If we make it safe for everybody, then we've made it safe for everybody as they cross the street. Next slide. Social participation. This one is, how do we get people engaged and active in the community and get them out there? We know the terrible effects of isolation, both the physical effects on that and the mental, and then the cost to our communities because of those. And so how do we make it so that people feel free to get out and move around in the community? Next one, Adam. Respect and social inclusion. I heard, many of the things that you love about Stevens Point is how friendly it is and how welcoming. But, just thinking about it and making sure that that's a highlight of, is it welcoming for all people and all abilities? And so, just keeping a focus on there. Next one. Civic engagement and employment. We know that people are working longer into their 60s and 70s now, but then also outside of work and thinking about combating ageism in the workforce. But also opportunities for volunteering. Folks have a lifetime of experience that they have built up, and how do we get that knowledge to better our community and provide those opportunities and making sure people know that. Next one. Communication and information. This is always a challenge for communities because people get their information on so many different ways. And when I used to be in a downtown development organization, and you think you got it all covered, and somebody said, "Well, I've never even heard of that." And I thought, outside of knocking on your door, I don't know how else we could have gotten it. But that it is, especially thinking about across generations and how everybody is getting communication in different ways. How can we start to address that to make sure folks have that information? And the last one, I think, is health and community services. And so the access to our health and what do we have, available to our communities and readily accessible there. Okay, Adam. The last one that we've added, and it's just something to be thinking about, is disaster preparedness. And what do we do if something happens, particularly with our older populations? Do we have a plan for addressing that, on how do we get them out of the community or safe in the community? Many times that's often overlooked. And so we want to make sure communities do that. ARP is just getting into this, and side plug, a former colleague of mine from ARP, Danielle Aragoni, just released a book a couple of weeks ago that addresses this, the effects of climate change and on older adult populations, and how do we prepare them for disaster preparedness. So that's just something that we like to throw out there to think about. Okay.
So I think before we touch on really the role of this commission, are there any questions specific to the different domains of livability that you have, or if there's any comments that you have specifically? By means.
Yeah.
And I will, if we touch, if you want to touch. I don't know where you want to start.
Yeah, I mean, we can, just to give you an idea of, in Wisconsin, who else is a participant. So if you want to go back to that. Here's a map of Wisconsin, so all the points are the other age-friendly communities around the state. You're in good company. Some of them have been at various stages. So our first communities in Wisconsin were Sheboygan, Shorewood, and Greenwood. They have now been in for 5 years, and they have re-upped their commitment to be part of the network. So must have found value in it, so we're happy to have them on board. And I think that just kind of a good segue to understand what all of this, what's a timeline on this, and what is the commitment. So when Stevens Point had applied to be part of the network of age-friendly communities, number one, it's not a competitive process. It really is just the application is an opportunity for the community to think about what are they doing and where do they think they'd like to go. And so that begins, once you join the network, it begins the first part of a 5-year process. And we say, years 1 through 2, you're going to be doing just learning from the community about what their perceptions of livability are. So as I heard you all talk about things that you think needed to change, I think they're great to keep that in mind, but also, don't let that bias in what you go out and hear from the community. So, there'll be a survey that ARP has that every age-friendly community does. I will warn you on the survey, it is long. It is about 20 minutes to take, but we still get a pretty good response rate, even at that, on the survey. But another opportunity to engage the community is smaller focus groups or going out in there. And so I encourage you to think about that and plan for that, especially for folks who might be intimidated by a 20-minute survey. How do we get the gist of that information, not necessarily written down in that survey format? But the survey, it's online. There are also paper copies. ARP hosts the survey online. There are, we'll meet with Adam and anybody else on the committee that wants to join with our national office folks and just talk about, we'll send you a sheet of paper. You can talk about where you want to go. Really, the survey, could be open to anyone 18 and up. We don't really get a whole lot of responses for the under 45 crowd. So our national office will say, well, let's have a question in there, for 45 and up, and then you'll move on. But we've had some communities that say, no, we really want to do 18 and up, and that's fine. And then you just have a smaller percentage of people responding there. The survey, there are only one question actually that you are able to have any choice in what it says. And I think it's question number 2, which talks about if you want to be able to slice and dice the data, and it says, are you from Stevens Point, or if there's particular neighborhoods that you'd like to do, or if you want to hear if it's folks from surrounding areas that might come into Stevens Point for work, you can add all of that stuff in there to help kind of understand the data later on, what people's perceptions are. Outside of that, you can't change any questions. They are what they are, and every community gets the same question. I think that there are questions that you can add at the end, which dealt with COVID stuff. Most communities now are opting not to add those in, again, because it's already a 20-minute survey. And they want to get to the heart of what they have. But then, once that survey and the other community engagement stuff comes out, then, you should be able to see some themes of where people are seeing importance or where some opportunities are for improvement. And then you all will get together and say, we have this list of 8 domains of livability, and it's not realistic to work on all 8 domains of livability. What are the top 2 or 3 areas that we think we can move the needle in the next couple of years? And then what are some things that we can help do that? And so you'll develop an action plan. We have some sample action plans that I can share when you get to that phase. You just turn that into our national office, or turn it into me, and I'll turn it into them. That's sort of the next milestone. And then you're kind of on your own for the next couple of years. We'll come back at the end of 5 years, at least from the national office standpoint, come back at the end of 5 years and say, how'd you do? And you have a little after action report. And then that's an opportunity for you all to say, hey, this is great. We still have some work to do and we'd like to continue, or this was a great experience, but we think we're going to move in a different direction. Either way works there. One of the things to stress, this is a local initiative. You're not going to have me as ARP or anybody from ARP saying, you need to do it this way. We're here as technical advisors and coaches, but you all know Stevens Point the best, way better than I could ever, and you know how things will work in your community. So we're here to provide, connect you with other members or share knowledge that we have. When it gets to, we've been engaged in the past as you go along to lead some workshop audits on how to conduct a walk audit, or how we now have a bike audit and infrastructure toolkit, and so we can work with the community on how to do that and send people out there. any of our services or technical assistance, there's no charge for the community. That all come free. We just need to be able to schedule that in there. When you have your action plan in place, if we see that there's an opportunity to engage some deeper technical assistance from some national and international partners that we have, we can schedule those. Like right now, our organization is in a planning stage for 2024. So we would say, hey, Stevens Point wants to address housing in their thing. We would like to engage Opticos Design to help us with that, or Eco Northwest to help them with housing strategy, or whatever that might be. Or, the formulation. Right now, we're working in the future in a couple communities on talk about missing middle housing, which are those 2 to 6 units. But do they really pencil out in those communities? And so we have the folks that can actually work for, this is what it looked like to build, and here's what the dollars look like to build in your community. So you can see, is this a feasible thing to begin looking at? So those are some of the assistances. Again, no charge for any of those. And then the other resource we have, there's an online portal for the Age Friendly Network that all of you are invited to attend. It connects you with all of the other communities across the country. So it's a great opportunity to ask a question. There'll be many times that, our main points of contact in the communities will say, what do you know about this? And I said, that's an awesome question for the portal. Why don't you put it out there and ask the others? Because if you have that question, other people do as well. And so this way, they have the benefit of seeing that answer there. We do have every quarter we get our Age Friendly Network folks together. 3 of the quarters are virtually, just via Zoom, and we just connect them all around Wisconsin, find out what's going on, share some new stuff, talk about some things that we're seeing, and then once a year we gather in person, like we were just here in September in Stevens Point, and just it was kind of a day and a half all total that we were here. So all of those things. And then we always pay for housing and transportation on those things as well. So that is the program in a nutshell. You'll learn more. I know it's a lot to throw out at you right now. And so as we get through, it's not like you can never ask me another question again. We'll, as we get through, we can definitely cover that stuff.
Awesome. Are there any questions, I guess, just broadly speaking, about the role that this commission will play? What are some next steps? Are there any questions that you have either for us, for myself, or Darren, or you just want to shoot out to the crowd?
So I just have a quick question. I see, I guess, all the benefits and all of this. I'm just more curious on what kind of sparked the discussion or the initiative to move forward with this, I guess, commission, as well as becoming a part of the AARP community.
Yeah, I think locally here in Point, one of the things that I've heard time and time again, luckily for me personally, there's multiple commissions that I staff, and they kind of have focus on their own unique topic that tie into the ultimate goal of livability. If it's our Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission, if it's our Planning Commission talking about regulatory reform to, say, our zoning code, if it's historic preservation, trying to improve the accessibility into these older historic buildings where it's just naturally harder to do. That's a topic that I've heard time and time again. So that's kind of what sparked the internal conversations of, maybe we should have kind of a central figure who addresses...
Tie everything together.
That ties everything together and focuses on that issue.
Perfect, thank you.
I have a question for kind of you both. A lot of times when there's a solution, there needs to be policy language around that solution. Does AARP have a clearinghouse of examples or successful policy wording that we might be able to utilize as we go through this process? Versus reinventing, like inventing the wheel?
On limited topics, and mainly around housing. As it comes to, we have ordinances for accessory dwelling units, both at the state and local level, as well as missing middle housing at the state and local level. That we've worked with outside sources to develop that. And then we present it as a good, better, best type of thing, because we all know that the best might not fly. It's what we'd love to see in a perfect world, but it might not be there. And so what are some other options that you can do? Outside of that, we have some fact sheets and things on particularly transportation and a lot of our workbooks, and they'll have some suggestions in there. We can also run it past, the beauty of my position, I have a whole team back in Washington, D.C. That are subject matter experts in all of these different areas of the 8 domains of livability. So I could be the real generalist, and I say, hey, Shah, I need you to, or Samara, I need you to come in and help us on housing, and what are you seeing? Or Jeff, we're dealing with this transportation thing, and what are you seeing from a national perspective, and how can we help our communities and put this stuff together?
I think that's what I've been wondering is the portal, or you. I've always thought that, we should only steal from the best. So how can we find out what some other communities are doing and what's working and stuff like that is easy to get at?
Yeah, probably the best way is through the portal. Okay. There's also, our Livable team runs a monthly webinar on all of these topics. And so you can sign up for it. If you can't make it, live when it's always recorded, and you can, catch it later on. But they're always sending out, what's the latest information on all of this that we're seeing, and what are the trends we're doing. And everything that AARP does, they love to really lift up the locals who are doing this stuff. And so they'll always make sure there's locals speaking about their successes or what didn't work so well in what they were doing it, so that you can, then not only do you have a local contact that you can go back on, you also have a good picture of what's out there.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Darren, I know from a staff level through the Age Friendly Network, I essentially have an account, and you have access to not internal documents, but being able to participate in conversations or stuff that Bill always brings up usually every week or so. Is that something that individual commissioners can?
Anybody who's involved with your Age Friendly program has access to that.
Okay.
And, we would just need, you can send, if it's something that you'd like to participate in, just let Adam know, and then he can send him your email addresses, and then I will forward them on to the national office.
And I can follow up with an email to you all, kind of explains a little bit more about that. So, any other questions?
Has there been any discussion about reducing the size of the survey? I just know just in general with surveys, just the length of it just becomes intimidating. I'm like, I'm not gonna.
I did include that in the end of the packet just for giggles.
It's been brought up, and it hasn't gotten anywhere. Okay. And I think part of the problem is we're still seeing really good response rates. So people are still taking it. And I think if it ever got to the point where that would really trail off, then they'd step back and look at it. But now, now there's 700 and some, surveys out there that people have taken, and it's like, well, where do we start cutting that it doesn't necessarily compare anymore to what was done before?
It's a lot to cover too.
Yeah. So because people are doing it, I mean, we're still seeing, multiple hundreds of people who are taking this thing.
Perfect.
So,
thank you.
Any last questions? Otherwise, that is a really perfect segue. Thank you for leading that up, Dom, to our next agenda item. Wanted to spend briefly some time talking about the community needs assessment, as Darren mentioned. Actually, I'll probably just keep the PowerPoint up. So as Darren mentioned, the first year of our role as a commission is going to be to conduct the community needs assessment. And as for any long-term planning document, if it's more planning land use, if it's Parks and Rec oriented, one of the central themes, one of the central activities to really make that long-term plan come to fold is to have community engagement. And one of the things that I always stress with folks when they're on a local level, when you're interested in conducting this citywide, more long-term plan, is that you need feedback from the public, because public input really is the driver for what that plan is going to say and look to achieve. But also it's important, and this is what Darren mentioned earlier, is it's important to have different means of public engagement. Surveys is a really good example, a really good route of trying to reach a broad audience. That's not the only way, and that shouldn't be the only way. There might be folks who are maybe a little less receptive to completing a longer survey, but would rather have, say, face-to-face interaction. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is discussing the different modes, the different means of community engagement. You know, you all in your respective professions, you have, you know, you've definitely seen what works and what doesn't work in this context of livability. So are there certain audiences that you want to reach as we go through the community engagement piece of creating this plan? Are there certain means of community engagement that you think would work best? If it's a kind of a town hall style concept, is it more, say, kind of a neighborhood meeting, attending say, our downtown area, attending our downtown bid board meeting or Stevens Point Alliance meeting? I guess, or from a university level, talking possibly with SPA, the Student Government, SGA, sorry, the Student Government Association. Are there certain groups or ways of community engagement that you think we should look at, that we should prioritize going forward? And again, no answer is a wrong answer, just kind of shooting answers out here to drive the conversation.
We have a lot of success with older populations with focus groups, like meeting them where they are,
Yeah.
and in culturally appropriate ways, depending on the group of elders. But we find that when seniors, perhaps, you arrive in a group that's already formed and they're comfortable with each other, they're much more likely to absolutely give you the straight opinion. And so I can see, like, there's a group of seniors who meet in the library. You might want to get an invitation to that and have little focus groups that are already cohorts, so they're more comfortable speaking about what they're experiencing.
So generally smaller groups, maybe 6 people, arbitrary number, but 6 people.
15. It depends on the cohort. Like, I'm thinking about, like, the Tai Chi class that I have at my senior center is a tightly knit group of about 18 people, and they're already comfortable with each other, and so I've used them as a focus group in the past because none of them is afraid to say what they really think, and so you really get a lot of honest answers.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I'm connected with United Way, and we just finished a 5-year survey.
Yeah.
It is Portage County. You'd have to kind of glean some things out of there, but there's 3 calls to action. So I just would hope that we don't end up stepping on one another and duplicating efforts. There's a lot of information in the life report that we should probably review.
And do you recall what means of, how was public input? Surveys was the sole one, or was there other?
I think it was mostly survey, I believe, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't work with it this year.
Darren?
I thought it would be best just to share some experience that we've seen from other communities that work. And here's where it's crucial right now in laying good foundation. What we always advise for you to do is do, we call it a community network analysis. So think of all the networks, the formal and informal networks that are, in Stevens Point. And this could be a good brainstorming session, or either do it on flip charts or do it online. But, we call it who lives, works, and plays in Stevens Point. And you just list them all out. And then you start to look at, okay, who are the groups that are represented there? Who would be a contact person? Because as I've seen in the past, we want to get them engaged early and let them know what you're doing, because if you're going to need their help, the last thing you need is to say, hey, we need you to turn this around in a week. Can you help us out? If they knew nothing about the backstory of what you're doing. And so, being at the beginning of letting you know what you're doing, where you think you might need their help, can do it. Because also, for many groups, it's a trust issue, and if there's a relationship there. And so, if you come in with a trusted partner, or the trusted partner takes the lead on doing this focus group, you'll get much better information on that too. And so I always, I've seen some communities struggle with that. They're like, yeah, we'll get to it. And it always seems like such a menial task. And then they're struggling when I can think of, a couple of communities where I always say, you've got 1,200 responses on your survey, but essentially it's the same person that took it. 1,200 people took it, but on paper they all look the same. And then trying to go back and fill in to get a different voice in there, it's a little bit of a struggle versus if we were a little bit of proactive in the beginning. So I always, take some time to list all of the networks out there and then figure out who would be the contact person and then talk to them about what's a great way to talk to your constituents and how can we do it? Is it something that you lead? And then how do we train you then? We'll give you questions and how do we train you to get information so that we can get that back?
Any other comments that folks have pertaining to more so community engagement? Or, based off of what Darren mentioned just now, kind of the groups, the live, work, play, is there anything that just jumps off the screen of we should look into talking with this group, or we should focus on that group? Is there anything that just screams that you just want to say right now because it's burning in your mind?
ADRC.
Hi. My senior center definitely springs to mind, but also there are several other community groups that are kind of coming up in my head. The other thing I thought, as far as outreach, if we wanted a diverse approach between surveys and focus groups over the next year, there are events where there are a lot of locals who come to, and we did this with Healthy People Portage County, where we set up a table at, this was the Amherst Fair, but like at the Jazz Festival in September, at, the concerts in the park, and other venues in Stevens Point where people are out, maybe one of the farmers market weekends, and just be like age-friendly and talk to people that way. Might be another really good way to get information in a different way.
Yeah, and I've come to learn over the years it's better to essentially go on their home turf. Mm-hmm. They're more receptive, they're more open to providing valuable feedback instead of asking them to come to you. Right? So I think that's a really good point that you mentioned, Kate. Mm-hmm. Any other comments?
Are we able to provide this survey in different formats? Like, are we able to have options of people calling a number and they can have someone read the questions to them, or are there different ways other than just mailing or emailing a survey?
ARP doesn't provide any of that. If that's something the local steering committee or commission wants to take on, you can do that. And then also keep in mind, ARP just works on the online format. So if you do paper surveys, you have to enter that information into the online thing. So and there are many communities that do that, and they work with folks to do that. But I didn't want that to be a surprise when you're like, hey, we have all these paper surveys. I'm like, have fun with that.
I like data entry, just so you know. Is it available in other languages?
The survey is available in Spanish and English. We do have. We worked with Appleton, and Adam had this question earlier. We have a translation into Hmong. Okay. But I know that, like in La Crosse, the Hmong Cultural Center there just said it's easier for us to do an oral focus group than it would be to do a paper survey, and so they just gathered that up orally and did focus groups there. But
thank you.
But we can get the Hmong version because ARP paid for the translation. So.
Perfect.
I guess the last one that I guess I don't know how much we want to stress on it, but we would be the working with the university, which I think just trying to keep them here as long as possible, especially after they graduate. So making Stevens Point as great as it possibly could be. But I also know there are different conflicts with other, I guess, age groups and demographics that are, I guess, go across the different 8 elements. So kind of just going to them, just like we've been talking about, I like Darren's suggestion of just kind of going to where they're at and just go to the school and say, hey, have a little booth or something at an event, ask them questions, because if you can make the city more livable for them, they're more likely to stay, and then they're going to work through that life cycle that way. So I think I know a lot of these types of commissions and organizations generally tailored toward, older individuals. So I think just tying in that younger side just to make sure, because ideally they'll be here when they're older as well. So there'll be a benefit both ways.
Yeah, that's something that we've definitely learned on a city standpoint since our first neighborhood plan that we adopted, that our council adopted last month, included the area, basically included UWSP on the west side of this project boundary, all the way east towards I-39. So it included younger population in UWSP, but also included folks, say, in their 50s, 60s, 70s plus, who lived, say, along Green Avenue, Ridge Road, kind of Stanley Street, kind of in that corridor. So I think I really appreciate that you mentioned that, Dom, and that it's naturally for any long-term plan that you work, there's going to be moments of conflict in terms of priorities that folks want to set. So I think it's good for us to try to address early on what those potential conflict points could be, just to try to produce a better plan in the end. So,
Adam, if I could, as two things popped into mind.
Yeah.
The first, for every community, AARP will also pay for some sort of kickoff celebration when you're ready. And so some communities have said, we want to identify all of the partners in the community, invite them for a breakfast so they can learn about it. We pay for it all. Some have done an ice cream social. Probably not the best wintertime activity, but they've done that in the summertime. Whatever, within reason, whatever you would like and you think would work well in Stevens Point, the tab's on us. So,
if I could you give some examples from some of the other communities in the state, what they did as part of their kickoff party?
Yeah, I can think, there were some around, we had breakfast kickoffs and we had a lunchtime kickoff I think La Crosse was lunchtime. Madison was a breakfast. In Wauwatosa, it was a Sunday afternoon, just ice cream party in a park, and they invited everybody in there, but it was also the end of June, so perfect time for that. Some have just done just a simple hors d'oeuvre open house type of thing. It really is whatever you think would work well for the community. We encourage you to do that. So you just get in touch with us and let us know who we have to pay.
Perfect.
And then the other part of the information gathering that I think many communities sort of struggle with or lose sight of, but share stuff out as you're gathering it in and you're hearing stuff, just to keep that excitement going and let people know that you're doing it. And so finding public ways to be able to share that out, I think goes a long way for keeping the momentum going and people want to participate.
And I know our city website is not the sole means of providing information to the public, but we do already have a city webpage created for this commission, and that will be something that, as we progress in the months ahead, we'll put information on there.
But it's also a great opportunity, again, in identifying those partners in the community. Put it out in their stuff, their newsletters, their social media, that reaches that broader audience there.
Perfect. There's nothing else. I just want to quick end with a couple parting thoughts, just to kind of think about for when we meet next time. First thing, as Darren mentioned, the kind of doing the community network analysis. So think about some of the stakeholder groups that you think we as a commission should reach out to, that we should target as part of this first community engagement action. Next, the domains of livability, the different domains that, I'll just pull it up on the screen here. Think about some domains that you want to target. As Darren mentioned, it's not ideal for us as a community to target all 8 of these, just from a time and a realistic feasibility standpoint. So what are certain areas that you think we should target, that we should have higher priority to? Because that'll be something that probably next time we may want to have a kind of an initial conversation about what domains to discuss.
Adam, isn't that something you said would come out of the survey, though? That more the community determining what we would focus on?
You could do that. Fair. And then last thing, just more logistics than anything. We didn't do it for this meeting, but next time when we meet, we will select one of you as chairperson and one of you as vice chairperson. Just it's really standard for any city commission that we'll have to go appoint a chair and a vice chair. So if you are interested, keep that in the back of your mind. Not really much, I guess, I'm obviously a little biased, but not too much work that would have to be involved if you would be interested in being chair or vice chair. But if you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, that'll be something that we'll be selecting one of you next time. So with that, our agenda is exhausted. I'll reach out to you, kind of a summary in a little bit, just summarizing what we talked about, and then I'll be in contact with you all as far as when that next meeting will be. So, like I said, our agenda is exhausted, and we will adjourn at 6:04 p.m.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.